Hi, I'm Paul Santinello. Welcome to the show, The Upside. This is where we talk about all the good things that are going on in the town of Long Meadow and beyond sometimes. Today, I'm very happy to have as my guest the Director of Parks and Recreation here in the town of Long Meadow, Bari Jarvis. Bari, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Today, we're going to talk about all things Park and Rec, what they do, how it, how you might be able to participate in some of the programs, whether they're for your children, for you, and the first thing I'll start with is you have programs that range in age from what to what?
From 1 month, actually birth, all the way up through as old as you can imagine.
All right, so you take care of the whole population of the town of Long Meadow, literally.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Recently, you just had a pancake breakfast at Long Meadow Days. It's an annual tradition. How many years has Park and Rec been doing it?
This was our 10th year.
10th year.
Actually, yeah. Spring's usually a busy time, which is great in our department. We just wrapped up our dance recital, and we just had the pancake breakfast. The kitchen in Long Meadow sponsored the event. It was a great event, the 10th time we did it, and we had a little over 275 people come through.
And they come and eat pancakes that are cooked on a grill.
They are. Yeah, and it's great. It's a great kickoff. Long Meadow Days is run independently, but it's a nice kickoff to Long Meadow Days.
And there's a road race in the morning, so
Correct.
a lot of times the runners are coming in, eating breakfast. Last year I was there. It seemed to be more of it's a family event.
It's definitely a family event.
It's not just someone coming in and saying, "Let me grab a cut." It's a family event, whether they're running or not running.
Correct. Some people use it as a kickoff to Long Meadow Days. Some people, if they are perhaps participating in the parade or the road race, they'll come in and they'll enjoy the event, and then they'll go about their day.
And then money that's raised from there goes to what?
Goes to the Trelease Fund, which is part of the Parks and Recreation Department. It's a special revenue account, and we use it for scholarships. So people that might not otherwise have the financial ability to participate in programs, they would be able to.
And that's why I asked you about it, because I know where the money went. But because that's important. So, So even when there are programs that are being offered, there is a resource if folks can't foot the bill 100%, and that pancake breakfast goes to part of that.
Absolutely, and we and that's our primary fundraiser for that event. Our goal every year is $5,000, and we just about made it this year, which is great. And it comes into play mostly in the summer with pool passes or camps or daycare, whatever people can't afford to do for their children. They can apply, and if they meet the guidelines, then they can participate through that program.
Okay, and they do that right through Park and Rec?
They do.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what we're going to talk about is of some of the upcoming programs, because as we're taping this, it's May 25th, I think, or 26th, 25th, I think, but we're going to talk about some of the programs that will be going on from this point forward so people can hopefully participate if they hear about them. So what are some of the things that are coming up? School's over in about a month or so. And then where does Park and Rec pick up from now till then and then beyond?
Sure. Actually, today we are filling one of our swimming pools, which is an exciting day for us. So the Reynolds Pool at Bliss Park is being filled today as we speak. So we're getting ready for summer. We have our traditional camps. So we have our day camps at Greenwood Center, which is the typical traditional camp day that they have swim lessons, and they do arts and crafts and theater and things like that. We have a number of sport camps that people can participate in, and everything from golf to tennis to lacrosse, basketball, really anything you can imagine. And then we have some specialty camps. So we have a Princess Ballet camp, which sounds, it's a blast. It's something. Palace Pets is another one that's specially themed. We have a Frozen camp, Frozen Princess camp. We have a STEM camp. So
hold on, what does a Frozen Princess camp entail? Because I know Frozen is the hottest thing that came out of Disney in the last 20 years. So.
Surprisingly, it still is. Yeah. So they, it's princess related. So they dress up.
Now these aren't parents. These are kids we're talking about.
These are small children.
No, I'm kidding.
There's a lot of people that might want to take a break in their day and absolutely do that. And Palace Pets, so they're themed camps, and those.
Where are those held?
Those two particular camps are at the community house.
Okay.
And most of the specialty camps are housed at the community house. We have our engineering camp through Mad Science, so it's a STEM-based camp. It's more science, technology, math. We have Lego program. We work with a company, Skyhawks, that runs tennis and flag football. There's so many offerings, and from when they get out of school. They get out of school, and I think there's a lag of maybe a few days, but then that next week, the last week of June, from the third or fourth week of August, we have programs constantly. And if people don't want to commit to full day camps, we have evening swim lessons. We have swim lessons during the day, tennis lessons, golf. So if people want that shorter opportunity, they can take advantage of that.
And are most of those camps, they're geared towards kids, young, I mean, what age and below would you say?
Typically preschool, school age. We kind of segment the offerings. So we offer for preschool, we offer for school age, but then we have adult offerings in golf and tennis, and we have our adult leagues that we continue. We have volleyball throughout the year, and then a men's softball program that we have that carries through Labor Day.
Okay. Before we go on, I'm going to talk more about camps, but recently, and I didn't even know, I know they were ribbon cutting happened, and I didn't realize that for our tennis courts.
Yes.
So finally, and it looks like a really good job has been done on those courts. And I say finally because it took a long time for them to get processed. We have 12 new brand new tennis courts in town.
We do. Yeah. As opposed to some communities recondition their courts, they are literally brand new. They were built from the ground up. And it took a long time.
With new lighting.
With everything, new lighting.
No exposed wires.
No, state-of-the-art lighting. It took a long time, I think primarily because of the funding piece. They were very expensive. And it took us several years to obtain all the funding and then go through the appropriate process and build them. And we have a brand new shed. Bay Path University made a donation. Our DPW staff did a really nice job. There's, in one of the sections of the shed, there's a water bubbler. So where you see, not in new facilities, I mean, that you don't usually see that, but that's something interesting. New fencing. There's a coach's walk in the tennis courts, which is better for play for Bay Path and also for our high school team. And it's a beautiful facility, new sidewalks, new parking, everything. So.
What's and I think I know what it is, but what's the coach's walk? What does that mean?
That's so coaches or whomever getting from one court to the other wouldn't disturb play. So it's kind of a safe way to get from court to court.
Because our tennis courts were added on over time.
Right.
And sometimes you actually had to cross a court in play.
Yeah.
Or they had to stop play, or you had to wait for a stop and play to go to the next court to teach a kid or whatever it was.
So it's a safe place to watch or to cut through, and certainly anyone could use it. The residents, I think, appreciate that as much as the coaches do of the high school teams, because you can cross through, and it's a pretty safe way to do that.
And for folks that might not remember, some of those tennis courts, because I inspected them, and as we were talking about the funding, and some of them had a crack in there that could probably swallow up a small kid.
Correct.
And that's just from years of when they were built. And we did the same thing. We resurfaced courts over and over again, and eventually it's like building a cake, and eventually it can't take it anymore. So 12 brand new courts. Are there any? I know that we have tournaments that are played there that are not just high school things, and
we do.
And those are all outside activities, correct? That rent them through the town or whatever they are.
They do. They rent them. We just, as far as the high school goes, they just had their Western Mass boys tournament last weekend and the weekend before that. But we do have a USTA tournament the weekend of August 13th. That USTA is coming in and renting those fields for their tournament. And then Bay Path also rents the courts in the fall for their use as well. So they're getting a good deal of community use, but also rental opportunities, which is what we wanted to see.
Okay. I'm not going to try to lure you into the political realm, but one of the discussions we've had for years and years since I've been involved from finance committee days to now is the number of fields that we have in town, right? And whether we have enough and that type of thing. We've seen a shift in sports over the years, and it's not something that's happened dramatically, but you know, baseball's on a decline in terms of enrollment. I mean, or it was. I don't know what the numbers are now. And you see massive increase in lacrosse and things like that didn't exist 10 years ago. Ultimate Frisbee.
Right.
And I know Ultimate Frisbee on the high school level has 80, 90 kids, if not more, involved in it, and they practice up and play up at Wolf Swamp Field. I still don't get it all, but good for them because they're out there running around. Is there an issue where our fields are, in your opinion, I mean, do we have enough fields, or is it just how to use them, or?
I think it could be a combination of both. There is a shift, and I think every time we feel like we have a handle on a certain trend, it changes. For example, girls softball is actually a great example. for whatever reason, is probably the leadership of that program. We saw a huge influx in that program. So now we have additional kids playing in that league. We have people coming back in that maybe left Longmeadow for baseball to play in another league that are coming back. So there could be kind of a resurgence in that area as well. I think one thing that we don't really have is a lot of utility space. As you said, our utility sports are growing, meaning like lacrosse or soccer, where you could kind of put them almost anywhere if you could line and put nets, and ultimate frisbee. I think one of the things that has happened during the high school construction process, which is now over, but the fields are just starting to come back into use, and they were out of use. So I think that could have put a hindrance on how much field space we had. So I think we're looking at that too. But one thing that we don't have in this town, we have a plan for field use, but we don't have a lot of fields we can rest. So if we're using all the fields we have, we're wearing and tearing, and I think we're mindful of that, but probably need to come up with a plan to address that.
Right. And one of the things that the park board is appointed by the select board, and I've attended some of the meetings in the past, and one of the things that the park board does have, and I don't know if it's from the park board or from your department, is a master plan. And that master plan includes things like field use and that type of thing. So, and again, I don't want to make this a political thing because it can easily turn that way for some folks. But the reality, and I think we've said all along, is there's plenty of fields. It's just, like you said, how to use them. Where sports that are growing that you could stick over here, you just can't stick them over there anymore because the participants are so high and so forth. Is there anything big in the master plan that's coming before the town or should be coming before the town in terms of things that we need to look at or consider?
I think there's layers of that plan. I think what we've developed is more of a strategy for how we use space, and we've looked at what user groups we have, what facilities we have. I think it looks at some of the challenges, but I think one of the biggest challenges we have is being able to maintain what we already have. It's very easy to say we can put a baseball field, for example, and a soccer field at Blueberry Hill School, but then it's isolated from other fields where it's more efficient to just get them all maintained at one space. So I think we're looking at all of those things to determine conclusively if we have enough space.
Yeah, and one time coaching Little League, our team made we were in the playoffs, and we had our game had to go to extra innings. We had to go to another night. Then the very next night, we had to use the field behind Blueberry School. And when I say field, I'm being very generous because the weeds held up the dirt basically in there. So I know what you mean, that it was isolated. It really wasn't maintained as a field. It was there as an add-on for practice and things like that. And what we talk about when you use the words rest in the field, and I know a lot of times that gets lost in the conversation about whether we have enough fields or not, is rest in the field means you don't use it for a season.
Right.
And we don't do that often in Longmeadow.
No.
We use every single ounce of field I think we have in this town for all the different sports. And rest in the field means you don't play on it. You still mow it. You still groom it. You still fertilize it. All that other stuff. And that's how you preserve your fields over the long term. But we don't have that luxury because there's really aren't enough fields to do that right now.
Right.
Right. And hopefully someday there'll be potentially be a turf field in the high school that would allow for some of that, maybe, but that's down the road. When you take a look at the programs that you offer, because demographically we've seen school enrollment go down. So you've had to do a shift, I know, from anything from daycare to camps and stuff like that, because as the school population goes down, so does your customer base in some segment. How do you adjust to that? How fast do you see a trend like that happening?
I think we use our daycare as a benchmark, and we look at how many infants are coming in, toddlers, preschoolers, and eventually that indicates kind of what the population is. And we did see a downturn, but now we're seeing an upswing again, especially with the infants coming in. We have a wait list, which is a great problem to have, and then a high preschool enrollment, which indicates that we may have some pretty static numbers in our after school. At Greenwood, we run our after-school program and the daycare, so we can adjust easily. We adjust our staffing patterns for those types of programs. But for other programs, we don't see a negative impact. We adjust our staffing. What we might do is market outside of the community if we see a need to do that, which we have, and especially with the sport camps, we have really great sports in this town, and it's a draw for us, especially since most of the sport camps that we offer, the high school coaches run. So it's a huge draw for other communities, especially with lacrosse and football, and we get a lot of other communities that want to participate in our program, so that actually helps us.
So when we see a program that's on a field in the summertime, and they're usually on there in July, and the poor kids are dying of heat and they put up a tent maybe, but those facilities are being rented through Park and Rec if it's a town field, and then there's also the school fields, for example. You don't rent the space for like Russell Field, and that's through the school department.
We don't have a rental agreement with the school department. We utilize the fields. If we do need inside space, we would rent it from the schools.
So when we do see a program, we know that it's being at least through Park and Rec in some degree.
Correct.
Right. So all those programs, when you're driving around town and you see 50 kids up at Wolf Swamp doing a soccer camp or something, that's through Park and Rec. That just happens to be one of the offerings. What are some of the programs that we have for I'd say for seniors or anybody who doesn't have kids in the school that are looking for some activities, and what do we offer? I know we have an adult center and they do specific programming, but what does Park and Rec offer? You mentioned volleyball, for example.
We do. We have a senior volleyball program. Parks and Rec, we do a lot of programming. We offer trips. We offer adult enrichment type programs. The senior center, we try not to duplicate efforts too much, and I think they do a nice job with things that they offer. We've offered photography, Tai Chi and karate. We offer day trips, and we have a senior volleyball program that we offer.
And right next to the Advil concession stand, right
we
after
should,
the tournament.
Oftentimes, yes.
You do things like trips where, I mean, not even long trips. I remember one of the things that pops in my head is buying tickets to a Falcons game that people in Long Meadow can purchase.
Yes.
And they're cheaper than what you can get directly?
Oftentimes they are. I mean, the Falcons are an interesting example because we don't have the Falcons anymore, but we're hoping that we have the Pirates, which could turn out to be the Springfield Pirates. But the Yard Goats is our new, because it's now baseball season, we have an arrangement with the Hartford Yard Goats where people can come in.
That's the name of the baseball team?
In Hartford, yes. They're still building their stadium, so they haven't released tickets yet for the 2 dates that we purchased, one in July, one in August. Our fingers are crossed that we'll get those tickets.
And this is the former New Britain team that's now moving to Hartford.
I think it could be, or it could be. I don't know exactly the logistics.
But people can buy tickets through Park and Rec.
They can.
Is it a bus trip down, or is it just tickets?
No, it's just tickets.
Okay.
So similar to with, and I would assume that with the new AHL team that Springfield will acquire, it'll be the same as with the Falcons, that you buy vouchers for any game. And it's very convenient. So if you'd like to come in on a Friday for a Saturday night game, you could do that.
Okay.
And they're usually a couple dollars cheaper than what you'd buy at the door, and those couple dollars go back to the department, which is a nice deal for us, and it bolsters those accounts that we use for scholarships and rec donations and things like that.
And how do they find out about going to the Park and Rec website?
A couple ways. They can always check the website. We do flyers, we do weekly press releases and email blasts. It's always on the website, though. All of our up-to-date information is at lprd.net.
Okay, so if you're looking to go to a game, instead of buying your tickets at the stadium, you can buy them through Park and Rec.
You can.
Save a little bit of money and help out Park and Rec.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And they can work on that name Yard Goats sometime between now and the time the stadium's finished before they put that up. That's interesting. What are some of the programs what are some of your favorite programs that Park and Rec offers?
I think we are. I mean, it depends on the season. I think we are, even though we're going into summer, we're in full swing planning for the fall.
Yeah.
And one of the few sport programs that we run, not independent with an association, but within the department, is our field hockey program. Field hockey is still pretty small in Western Massachusetts, but we run that through Parks and Rec, and we are in the process of planning that program out, and we've actually just added a bantam segment, which is a big deal in the field hockey world, but what it really means is 3rd and 4th grade girls can come and play field hockey and learn the sport. So that's definitely one of my favorites. Flag football is another, which really isn't run directly through Parks and Recreation, but it's a sponsored group. It's the Long Meadow Youth Football Association, and another way to attract younger kids and get them involved in the sport with kind of the logistics and the skills before they really get into having to learn it. But Greenwood Center, I would say, is by far my favorite place to be, and we offer so much there. We have the after-school program and the daycare, and just so many different programs. You could go to Greenwood any day and see a new mom's group out in the park, or see a French class going on, or photography, and there's always stuff going on at Greenwood, which is nice.
Cool. I just had a question. I lost this. I'll come back. I'll figure it out some point in time. What are some of the things you want to talk to? You want to hit here before we run out of time eventually? So
sure. One of the pieces of feedback that we get often, especially this time of year, is why did you stop doing the concert series on the green? And we were actually just talking today about that, and we stopped doing it because of low attendance, which is unfortunate because the people that did come really enjoyed it. So we actually are bringing back one concert. We are not doing it on the green. We're doing it at Greenwood Center, and it's on Tuesday, July 19th at 6 p.m. And weather permitting, it'll be outside, and it's with Roger Tinknell, who is a children's performer that we've had over the years, and people love him. So if it's a nice night, we'll be out on the lawn, and if not, we'll be inside.
In the gymnasium.
In the gym.
Yep, sweating it up. There you go.
Hopefully not, but yeah.
AC will be on. Don't worry about it.
Assuming we had AC, which unfortunately we
no,
don't.
but we'll tell them that anyway, just so they show up.
It'll be air conditioned and wonderful. Yes.
What about one of my favorite things is going into the community house when something's going on and there's dancing going on upstairs.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's 1,000 head of cattle walking through the community house, and I say that smiling because my daughters dance, and it just seems like these little girls come out about this tall and they make all that racket.
5 3-year-olds is what it boils down to.
And the dance program is probably, I'm going to say probably, is a very successful program that is run through Park and Rec. Because if you go out there on certain nights when dance is getting out, you can't get in.
Correct.
Because everybody's waiting to be picked up and so forth. How did that come about, and how many people do you have participate in it?
It's probably one of our showcase programs that I think I mentioned briefly that we just had our recital, but it really culminates in the fall. We have over 120 dancers, and it started smaller. I've been with the department 22 years, and it was probably a little bit before that. So for at least 25 years, we've had the dance program. It started with one instructor and maybe 50 students, and it's grown. Now we have 2 instructors, and it's Monday through Thursday, every style of dance, and children from ages 2.5 all the way up through high school.
I must be in there when they're doing the clog dancing or something.
You would think. It's the acoustics in that building are interesting.
And you have a beautiful room upstairs for dancing that obviously no one sees it because you're not going up there. And you gave me a tour one time. It's probably one of the nicest dance rooms.
It is.
Because it's so big. And I know from my kids dancing, they've never danced in a room that big, unless they were on stage somewhere.
Yeah, it's really, I would say it's a hidden gem. It's a professional dance studio, which I don't know of any other Parks and Recreation department that offers a professional dance program. Yep. Both instructors we have are certified in a number of different styles of dance. One of them does adult Zumba. So in addition to dance, she runs an entire fitness program for adults in the evenings, and we're almost ready to start marketing for the fall. So just when we get done with the spring and the recital, we're back at it for the fall.
Where's the recital held? In the community house?
It's in this building at the high school.
Oh, at the high school.
Right.
Okay.
It's quite large. We sell out about 600 people.
600 people come, I know. So
Yeah.
going to see, that's awesome. Because like I said, if you've ever gone through there, you can tell there's a huge number of participants because the lines of the cars waiting to pick people up is
Absolutely.
phenomenal. And these are things that we offer that, when you look at the Park and Rec budget, these programs are either breaking even or making money for the Park and Rec department. And I don't mean gobs of money, but I mean these programs are being offered to the town at no expense to the residents. In other words, they pay. But if my child's not dancing in Park and Rec program, then I'm not paying for that program, so to speak.
That's correct.
The facility's there, and there's money that comes out of your budget for lights and heat and that type of thing, just like all our departments pay for. But those programs, and how many programs do you offer as a number? As a Park and Rec offer?
We offer over 50 programs. They change.
Yep.
So one season it might be, in the summer we have over 100 different combinations of programs that we would offer. But some seasons, winter is probably our slowest season. But we have programs that are I would say seasons that we have 30 programs and seasons that we have 100 programs.
So how many people do you think participate in Park and Rec programs? Numbers, just pure numbers.
Over 1,000 every
1,000
year.
people in town. young and old, doesn't matter.
Yes.
How many employees do you have that are under you?
For full-time, we actually,
In Park and Rec?
in Parks and Rec, we have about 15 full-time staff.
But most of that's at Greenwood, correct?
Most of it is at Greenwood, right? So if you're just
Walk
looking,
into Community House, how many people work in Park and Rec?
there are 3 of
Three
us.
that offer programs that over 1,000 people are participating in,
Correct.
and we don't lose money on them. That's the
We don't.
right.
Right.
And in total, I mean, the swimming pool is a different issue because that's the board voted years ago to make that as a quality of life issue, not a money maker and that type of thing. But that aside, your programs are self-sufficient. And when you're bringing a new program on, it's usually because of demand, or
It's usually because of demand, or maybe a trend was identified. We have tried to implement programs that haven't been successful right away, but we try not to run them at an expense. Sometimes it takes time for things to catch on, but usually it's because of a demand, or we think it's a great idea and it's going to work well.
Okay. I think that said 3 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever it said, but we're getting towards the end. I can't see that number in the dark, but that's okay. I'm going to talk as long as I want to, darn it. That was the Gerald Academy coming out, I'm sorry. When you look at, you've been in Park and Rec for 22 years. You became director about 10 years ago?
About that.
I think it was my first or second selectman meeting, and I had no idea what that whole thing was about, and you were the person to be appointed to Park and Rec, and Mike was there before that, and before him was Harry Reynolds and so forth. And in the time that you've been there, what have been some of the biggest challenges you had in that department?
I think the biggest challenge was probably when we went through the charter change and just the implementation and then the big change with the Parks Division, and just kind of working through that. I think the other one was probably when we saw the economy start to downshift and really realized at that point that our services are elective. And if people needed services, they could go other places. We still offer, I believe, the best services and probably the best price. We run a lot of our programs like a business, and the dance studio is an example of that. The day camps, a lot of other people provide those services. We do them better.
Yeah, and I think that, when you're from a position of being on the select board, that when you look at the offerings that we provide to the citizens of this, and I know anybody from outside the community can take advantage of them as well, but they're mostly Long Meadow residents that are in these programs that we by far offer, I think, the best, most robust program of Park and Rec program of any town around here that I know of.
I know we do, and all of our programs are geared for our residents. We do invite non-residents. We charge them more.
Yep.
Our programs and our services are meant for our residents. So we always give them the best deal and the best service and the best quality that we can.
And so as a reminder to folks, pre-charter, Park and Recs actually took care of all the parks in the fields. And
We did.
and when the charter came in, took that part of it and moved it over to DPW. And so you basically have the field maintenance not in Park and Rec anymore. That's why it's mostly programming that you're responsible for now.
Right.
Right. See, I had another question. I blew that one too. I'll figure that one out too. The other thing that's under Park and Rec is, and I know a lot of people aren't familiar until they actually get involved in it, is all the youth sports groups that, for them to be able to offer the sport in town, they have to meet the criteria of Park and Rec.
They do. I think we have established youth sport associations for every sport. Maybe there's a couple exceptions. We don't offer rugby or things like that, but everything else is pretty established. So usually if someone comes to me and asks if they can have field space or something, I usually refer them back to the associations. They work hard. They work hard at meeting the criteria that we set forward in terms of fair play and what we expect from our associations. So that's where our loyalty is in that respect.
Yeah, and I won't say that Park and Rec and the youth sports, are hand in hand all the time, but to me it seems from the outside looking in that it's a pretty good relationship that.
And we need them a lot more than they need us.
But they do need Park and Rec to make them the official sport of the town, whatever it is, sponsored sport, I should
They
say.
do. We work together,
Right.
and we need them. We
Yeah.
couldn't offer programs without the volunteers that run those associations.
Right, and there's a lot of sports groups out there that are taking the reins and saying, getting the blessing of Park and Rec and taking it and running with it.
And they're doing wonderful things.
Yeah. But I know what I mean is that there is a connection there, because I know that when I was coaching football, you had to go through a training program that was offered through Park and Rec.
Right.
So although you don't run football, you worked with football to make sure the coaches had the training that we were required to.
I think that's where I met you.
One of them, yes, probably.
Doing
Yes,
that training, yeah.
Yeah, that was before I was on the select board. Yep, absolutely. So, but that's, I mean, there's a cohesive relationship there that, although maybe not in lockstep, but pretty well working together.
We need each other.
And that's, in a lot of towns, that doesn't happen either. A lot of times there's a,
Right.
and I think we're just fortunate here that we have a great department that has had long-standing employees, not just you, but others in the department that have been there for a long time that
Right.
understand how to operate things and how to work with the different groups and so forth. And
Yes.
I don't think there's another town around here that I know there isn't, that has the sports offerings, the cultural offerings that we have through Park and Rec or
No.
through the town in general. So you have this magazine, so why don't you hold that up and we can show folks what it is.
Absolutely.
This comes out how many times a year?
This comes out right now 3 times a year. And the next one is coming out the end of August.
Okay.
And it will be our fall offerings and early winter.
Yep. So everything that anybody wants to know is in here, or lprd.net.
lprd.net. There's one last thing I would love to
Yep.
mention that I'm sorry that I didn't before, and we talked about unique things that our department does. We process passports, U.S. passports for the Department of State, which is different. I don't know any other recreation departments that do that. But what it means is people can come into our office if they need a new passport. And
Not the photo.
not the photo,
Right.
but everything else. If they need an expedited passport, and the transaction fee, the $25 that you'd pay anywhere, goes to our general fund. So
Okay.
for every passport Parks and Rec processes, $25 goes to the general fund. Not to Parks and Rec, but to the general fund.
To the town of
So
Long Meadow.
it adds up to thousands of dollars every year that is contributed to the general fund for passports.
And the difference is that if you go you just can't go to the Long Meadow, East Long Meadow post office to process them. There's only certain post office.
Enfield and Springfield.
And
Yeah.
that saves you a good trip and a good wait in line, and you can go to Park and Rec and
Absolutely,
do it.
and it's
you can
quick.
get your photos in a couple of different places like CVS and
UPS store
so you
and
can stay
places.
right in town to
You
do
can.
everything. Yeah,
Right.
and that's important. How much time do I have, guys? That's it. We're done. Thanks for, well, that was pretty good timing, so you got that in. Thank you for coming on, Bari. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Folks, thanks for watching The Upside. Long Meadow Parks and Rec Department is probably one of the best things that the town of Long Meadow offers its citizens. They truly do work for you. So thanks for watching The Upside. You have a great day. Have a good day.